Hey Hannah,
Amazing.
there we go. How's it
Okay.
going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Thank you for joining. I know it's end of the day for you on a Friday, so I appreciate it. How was your week? What's new?
Yeah, good. Pretty busy week, I think, but things are sort of coming to that Christmas break, wind down, hopefully. So we'll see how the next couple of weeks go.
Amazing. So for those that don't know your work, give Hash a follow, obviously, but give a little intro about yourself, where you're based, how you would define your work, the kind of artist that you are, just for those that are seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, so my name's Tash, and I'm a 3D artist and motion designer here in East London. And I've been working in predominantly advertising for around 10, 11 years, freelancing. Um, And then I would say of the last 3 or 4 years, freelancing for around 10, 11 years in the industry, predominantly advertising and then broadcast and TV the last 3 years. Um, and I guess I've just started to develop a 3D style that has fitted the kind of stuff that I enjoy doing in my spare time. So I think it started from lockdown doing character design and finally starting to like model for myself in 3D. I think previously when I did it, it was like getting models online or whatever brand or client I was working with using their stuff. But I started just modeling from scratch has been really fun and creative. And I guess I've created a style which is like fun and colorful and playful. Hopefully that's how it comes across. And I've just been enjoying sort of pushing that out to the world, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that are new to Hash's work, he's one of those artists that has like really defined and developed his own world and his own style. And as an artist, I mean, that's like one of the most important steps is kind of defining your vision and making your work so that people can, see it and be like, oh, that's Hash's work. I know his characters, I know his palette. Which is kind of the hardest part, to be honest. And I know, you worked in advertising for a long time, and Hash is one of our newest artists. So tell me a little bit about what you were doing before, diving into the world of 3D. How was that going full-time freelance for you? I mean, that's kind of a question that artists always have is like, how do I start? Like, how do I know when it's time? Like when did you feel confident and comfortable to like become an artist full-time?
Yeah. So I was actually super fortunate. I studied here in London, so it's obviously super busy and diverse, and the industry here is pretty strong, being in such a big, busy capital city. I was sort of scouted, I guess, from when I studied graphic design and motion design at university, and it was my final degree show. So at the end of your 3 years, you put on this big art show, and consisting of maybe like your last works worth of art. And I was sort of spotted by a local film production company. And they sort of just took me on and went straight into freelancing. It was more to come in and do some runner
Mm,
works, sort of
cool.
starting stuff that you do in it, when you start in advertising or TV or film.
Cool.
Um, so it was really, really basic. I wasn't really creating a lot, or seeing a little bit of After Effects work here and there. And I guess that just allowed me to like dip my toes into advertising and into that world and be like, oh, okay, I'm already kind of living and like working as a student, so I can kind of do this freelance thing where it's not permanent. I don't obviously know when the next paycheck's coming in. So that transition, I think I was very fortunate. I know it's a lot harder to do for people who have been working full time and then want to go into freelancing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess that was just an easy transition. And then it was predominantly really just doing a lot of advertising stuff, a lot of social media stuff. When I got into it, Instagram, like videos just started popping off, and Facebook video. So a lot of brands were trying to, make ads for that kind of content and that space. So it was a lot of fast, quick stuff
Totally.
with super fast turnarounds. So, it could be anything from a couple of days to a week or so.
Totally.
Um, and yeah, it was a lot of production stuff, and then sort of getting into advertising, and then slowly into the more 3D stuff over the last few years.
Cool. So started as contract. And I mean this is kind of a hard thing for any creative in the industry, but the networking, like the people that you've met along the way, like it's really important, and it's really important to like keep those relationships Do you find that it's also detrimental, like where you're based or where you live? You know, being in London is great opportunities, being in LA is great opportunities. You know, do you think that with just social media, someone could like do it anywhere?
I think now, yes. I think when I started out, it was definitely a little bit different. But I've met a bunch of artists who are from places that like I've not even heard of, and whether that's up and down the country here in the UK or places all over Europe, places all over Asia. And I think having an online presence is obviously the most important thing. And trying to sort of spread that out as well on all the different platforms. And it's a hard thing to do as an artist. For
Yeah.
myself, it is, it's a lot of admin work. But I think nowadays it's a lot better. If you put yourself up on Instagram or TikTok, you never know, something can just kind of go
Yeah.
viral.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to just put yourself out into that space.
I think that you're really successful in putting yourself out there. And, you know, for artists, I mean, that's not even my favorite thing to do, to like, you know, show face and do your tutorials and talk, but it like really adds such a nice level of like relatability and like, you know, personality and a personal aspect to it. How did you start doing that? Like, are you doing tutorials mainly? Are you just kind of talking about your process? Is it kind of Q&A stuff? Because I know you offer a lot, just like physically and personally, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I think probably over the last year. So like most of the stuff that I've learned when it comes to animation and 3D, although I went to university, a lot of it was through other people, uploading stuff on YouTube, uploading like, oh, this is how you do this technique or use this tool. And so I've always kind of been inspired with that, and I've always said one day I would like to do that as well. And it's fun, it's just like
Okay.
putting out free knowledge and content that
Okay.
and stuff that you learn.
I mean,
Um,
like it's really taking advantage of the breadth and the reach of social media is putting yourself out there, you know, so you can be an artist that's based anywhere, and your reach and, you know, like I think that a lot of that generates more followers and more views. So, you know, it's all a good thing. And I know it's probably hard for you to schedule and hard for a lot of artists to schedule, but you do a really good job at it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's tough for sure, but it's fun. And like you said, it's putting a face to the work and creating a sort of brand around it. Because I've always said, like, especially with design and what I do, like a lot of people can use the software, a lot of people can create the work,
Mhm.
but it's cool to be able to like align yourself with the type of work you do and put yourself out there. So brands, clients, it's like, okay, that's the guy that, Hash is the guy that does this thing,
So,
and he's the person I have in mind now,
yeah.
rather than anyone that just knows how to use 3D or whatever. It's cool to be able to sync those things sort of together.
Well, yeah, like the personality aspect of it, the personal aspect of it, you know, the visibility of it, the repetition of it, and anything when it comes to promoting your own work is super important. You know, if you're going to do it, don't just do it once, like try and be consistent. Um, so let's talk about client stuff for a little bit. I know you've had some, you know, luck with some really amazing clients under your belt, and hopefully we'll be able to, you know, continue that and work together on amazing stuff in the future. But um, yeah, let's talk about some of the things you're most proud of. I know Nickelodeon recently was a huge project for you, which like the fit seems just so perfect.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that and like, you know, how that came or what your favorite parts were, maybe challenges?
Yeah, so obviously Nickelodeon and the Kids' Choice Awards are massive, and they've been going on for forever. I definitely watched them when I was a kid growing up, and it was all about the slime and all the fun, seeing all your favorite TV personalities from whatever shows you watch on Nickelodeon. And I was very fortunate that there's a very cool studio here in London called Studio Morris, and the gang sort of reached out to me earlier on in the pitching process, which was really nice. So I got to help develop the pitch and put it forward to Nickelodeon. And I was very fortunate. It was pretty much up my street. It was, colorful, sort of this candy like world, fun and bubbly and wacky. Nothing really made sense or felt, everything felt like it's from a different universe. And
Cool.
sort of won the pitch, and it was on to production. It was a long 3-month process right up until the live show where the guys headed out to LA to work on set, because there's a lot of broadcast material. When it's TV related stuff, you got to handle a lot of files and be there live just in case something goes wrong. But it was super cool, obviously, and a lot of it was based around the SpongeBob IP, and that SpongeBob IP is incredible and fun, and we all know it. And what was so great about it was that there was a lot of flexibility with the IP, so I got to sort of recreate a lot of the stuff within the world. And it was just a lot of, you know, day in, day out of just like replicating stuff that we see from the cartoon and figuring out, okay, how can we put these characters together? How can we recreate some of the worlds, some of the, like the SpongeBob house, the Krabby Patty, all these different things. There's a lot of modeling, there's a lot of animation work involved. And I was involved, I was in charge of the main title sequence. So the first thing you see is this long 20-second 3D animation going in and through this SpongeBob universe into the Nickelodeon Award title sequence. And
so just for my own knowledge, and maybe this helps other people, so you said it was a 3-month process, big client with Nickelodeon. How many deliverables were you responsible for? Was it animations? Was it stills? Like, what was the expectation for 3 months of your work?
Yeah, it was a whole bunch of tools, to be fair. It was transitions, cutaways, VTs. So yeah, it's just a range of different elements, and you can kind of share assets from one thing to another that will work, because you know it's all a part of this sort of brand package that you're delivering. So it was a lot of assets. I think altogether it might have been 60 to 80 probably. Yeah, it was really it was a lot of work, and it's a lot of 3D, so or full on 3D, so it's a lot of rendering, a lot of late nights leaving the machine on and cooking my house. But yeah.
And I know you do a lot of your own modeling now. You know, you really developed your own world as an artist, your own style as an artist. Where do you want to continue to take that? Like, where do you want your work to develop into? Do you want to get further into modeling or motion or physical or installation? Is there somewhere that you kind of want to see yourself going in this next big year of 2025?
Yeah, I think pushing the character stuff will be fun. I think being able to make that its own thing or an IP in itself would be really cool, and you know, maybe turn it into merch, turn it into toys, physicals. I don't know. It's fun to just play around with that kind of stuff, because I don't get to do it always in client work or my day-to-day work. So it'll be nice to sort of push that out and see where I can kind of take that.
Do you have like, is your personal practice in creating art very similar to what people might see for commercial stuff? And two-part question: do you see yourself in your work? Like, do you ever find like ways to, I don't know, like, do you think your work reflects your personality or your characters, or like, you know, the bubbliness of it? I mean, I know my answer, but what is it your same as your personal work, and do you see yourself in your work?
I would say recently it's been aligning a lot more to my personal work, because I've been putting it out there and I've been kind of winning work based on that. So I did something for Starbucks at the end of last year. It was for their Red Cup campaign. You know, they have their famous Red Cups during Christmas. And yeah, it was like a bunch of emojis that I got to create, and it was sort of similar to the work that I do. It was really bubbly and it was all toy-like. So it's cool to be able to like get a lot of work based on that and be able to develop that style, and then I'm having fun doing client work, and that's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, that's so important. I think that you know, if you can find a way, this is like always a secret that I like to share, if you can find a way making work that feels authentic to yourself, that you want to be making, and then, you know, have clients responding to that and wanting the work that you feel is authentic to yourself, what you're known for, what you want to create, what they want you to create, that's like the best place to be.
Yeah, for sure. I think marrying those up together is always perfect. And you know, you don't get them on every job, but when they come and when you can show that was you in that work that came out, I think that's incredible.
Yeah, no, totally. What's your day-to-day like? Do you work at home? Do you go to a studio? Do you run in the morning? Do you know, walk 10 dogs? I really don't know. Like, how regular or irregular is your practice?
It's been so I've been going I wake up at 5 every morning to go
Oh my
to the
God.
gym, and that's
So
only
what
only
about-
been for a year. And yeah, everyone has the same reaction. Is like, what the heck? But I work from home, and I've been working from home since lockdown, so 3 or 4 years now. I don't have an office. I have an office at home, and so I think having that break and doing something else that's not creative as well is really important for me. So waking up super early, going to the gym, coming back, and then yeah, it's normally like start my day around 9ish or whatever. Have any meetings I need to, and then it's really just cracking on, I guess, into the evening. And then because there's a lot of 3D stuff, there's a lot of sometimes like leaving renders overnight, which is okay and fine, and you just have to do that. But yeah, I kind of try and break up my day with like early mornings, and then to go and like get that dopamine hit and
Oh.
get out of the office before doing like a long 8-hour stint at home.
Yeah, I mean, discipline as a creative, and honestly, discipline as a creative to stop, because it's like it can never end or you can never begin. It's like the hardest way to find balance is to make yourself kind of be a normal human with regular working hours, but then also turn it off so that you're not like working till 3 in the morning and you have your relationships and you have your friends. You know what I mean? It's like trying that balance of trying to be normal is something that we all probably struggle with. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like you're pretty good with your balance. You're healthy. You work on client stuff, your own work. What are some of the like your guilty pleasures, or what do you do when you're not working? What's your like ways to get out?
I mean, other than the gym and going for a run, I play a lot of PlayStation.
Okay.
I try and just like do things to turn off and like listen to a podcast in the background. Yeah, anything that takes me away from my desk is important. I'd like to say more stuff that takes me away from the screen, but sometimes a little bit difficult. And then yeah, I'm very fortunate obviously to be here in London, so there's always stuff going on, and on the weekends, and you meet friends, and there's lots of events and museums here. So yeah, getting out is just super important for me to take a break. And I've been doing this for such a long time. I think I have to build rhythm, and like work is this and play is this, and I think that's super important for everyone.
Totally. It's always cool as for a digital artist to hear what kind of games you like to play or what you like on PlayStation, and I'm sure people would be curious too. What's your faves right now?
I mean, my day-to-day is like FIFA, so I play a lot of football.
Okay.
But I love playing like Last of Us is like incredible. What else have I just been playing recently? I've played a little bit of Call of Duty, but Last of Us is like my favorite game. I've played it so many times.
I've heard of it, and I know nothing about digital video games regular. I don't know the difference. We have some people with questions coming in at the bottom in the comments. If you want to put a question in the little question mark bubble, we can get to those at the end. We're just going to keep rapping with Hash for a minute, and then we'll open it up to a live Q&A for anyone that wants to ask anything specific. But let's get into some of like the technical stuff, like what programs do you use? What's your favorites? What's the hardest? Where did you start? Where are you at now with software?
Yeah. So I use Cinema 4D for all my 3D work. It's just something that I've been using for the longest, and I know there's lots more now out there with Blender and all these different programs, but Cinema 4D for the core of it, and then a lot of After Effects, Adobe work for doing like compositing and animation work. I would say pretty much those two are the main programs that I use.
Do you draw at all, or do you do Photoshop stuff?
I actually don't. I've started obviously modeling now. That's straight into Cinema 4D. And even if I ever do need to do like wireframes or storyboards, I kind of do them very quickly in 3D. It just works out better. I'm just not that great at drawing. And in 3D, I feel like I can just whip it together a lot faster.
How did your character develop? Like how are you with character development? Like, was that kind of a fever dream? Was that like, developing something from childhood? Do you remember kind of visually putting it together as like a character that was going to be prominent in some of your work?
Yeah, I wish I could. I still can't find them, and I need to go to my parents' house and find them once. But I'm pretty sure I was drawing these like fat, weird characters with big heads. But I think it was just it just came from play and like messing around during lockdown and being like, oh, what happens if I play with this, or like add these different features, and then the pattern work came from just like sort of trying these different materials within Cinema 4D and seeing what can come out of it. And the cool thing is with all the pattern work that I do, it's all generative, so it can be different every single time because of the way I've kind of created it. So yeah, it was all kind of natural, I guess, and just like through development. I've never really been into like character design in general, but I guess it was just something that I started to like love doing after a while.
But you were drawing when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Were you always?
Yeah, I was drawing.
Were you always an artist? Did you always have creative tendencies when you were a kid?
Yeah, I definitely think so. But like most, you know, school, it kind of gets beat out of you a little bit maybe, and you do less of it as you progress in school. But then I sort of was fortunate. I mean, I was actually meant to be an engineer.
Oh.
I went to college to study to be an electronic engineer, and the dreams were to kind of get into that, I guess. But it just didn't work out, and I ended up going and doing like film studies and media and all these. I had to sort of move over a little bit when I went to college, and then kind of just was like, oh, actually, I do enjoy the creative side of things. More so the technical side, so I got into like editing and stuff like that. So that's how it kind of developed, I guess.
Cool. We had a question that popped up at the bottom that was curious if your characters developed from cartoons, like your favorite cartoons at all. I don't know. I wonder if that's true with like animators and digital artists. Like if you grew up with cartoons and animation. I mean, we all kind of did, but did you have favorites? Do you think that influenced you at all?
You know what? I mean, nothing I can recall, but I'm sure there's some sort of inspiration there for something. Yeah, I mean, I definitely was like every kid watching cartoons.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the stuff that I make, there's sort of these like blob-like characters. They're actually just the easiest things to model when I started out, and they've started to develop a little bit more over the time. So yeah, I guess it was just like through play.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for artists that are like trying to develop their style or characters, or kind of like, you know, the way their work should look, you know, or to look at things or not to look at things? You know, what do you think has helped you or benefited you, if anything?
Yeah, it's tough, but I think the moment, I think if it's like an idea that you've got and you've always had it, and you're just holding off, like, oh no, it won't look cool. That's normally, I find, like the great ideas is the stuff you're holding off because you're a little bit scared to do them. And I think once you like apply yourself and just get on with it, that's the only way to figure out like, oh, this is actually gonna work. This is gonna be fun. And I think it has to be something that you're like super passionate about and enjoying creating. For me, my like 3D style came from not having that much fun doing some of the client work that I did, because obviously you have to do what the brand wants, the studio wants, and that's totally fine, but you can't always express yourself through that work, especially starting out. So it was just, for me, a lot of play and a lot of like figuring different things out and doing it in as a sort of side hustle first. And I think that was sort of key, because it meant I had no pressure to like make it look a certain way or fit a certain style or trend. And I think that's actually the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, the luxury of no pressure is so important. You know, if you can do that and kind of figure out your voice and what you want to do and not base it off of survival right away, you know what I mean? If you can kind of like lean into developing your work and still have your side hustles or your job or whatever, or be fortunate enough to like work in the advertising agency or whatever. I mean, that's really, really important for sure. What else? Let's see. We have some questions that are coming in at the bottom. Let me just see about me. I don't know. What else with you? Anything that you want to touch on or talk about? I love your aesthetic and your background and your lighting. It all looks very
I'm trying, I know. Yeah, I just need more artwork to be put up. Yeah.
I can help you with that. We have a question from Gargo Productions. What is essential to do, have, or known for an artist in order to gain clients? So this is a question about getting clients. You know, what do you think is an essential thing to make clients notice you, to get clients? Like, is it social media or marketing or making work? You know, what do you think is an essential part of getting clients?
So I think the first thing is always having a strong portfolio and having a website to direct people to. I always I go to a lot of networking events for like design related stuff, and you'll be shocked. A lot of students, especially, or people that are starting out, don't have an online portfolio, and it's kind of crazy because that's your first port of call for if anyone's asking, oh, so what do you do and where do you want, like that's where you send them, right? So having, I think, a website doesn't have to be fancy. I think people maybe get a little bit held up in that, like, oh, it needs to look like this, and no, just have your strongest, your best work that represents you, put that up, and then it's about the outreach. So getting reaching out to your favorite studios, reaching out to your favorite brands, if they're smaller brands maybe, and then just putting yourself out there on social media and LinkedIn, stuff like that, and then of course networking events and all these different things.
I mean, personally, I will say that the lost art of the website is very important, to me as an agent, to clients, like social media, Instagram is great. Like keep that just kind of as a running portfolio. It doesn't even necessarily have to be super serious, but having just a refined website, even if it's simple, template based, throw your personal work up, any comps for client stuff, a little bio about you, just like as a nice portfolio. I think websites are actually very important.
Yeah, and keeping them updated, because I see a lot of websites where like the showreel was 2016 or something, and I think it's just a little thing to be like, okay, you're proud of your work and you're like keeping stuff up to date.
I mean, that's super important to me. I mean, in terms of getting clients, I'll touch on that a little bit. Repetition, continuing to make new work, continuing to show your followers that you're relevant, that you're doing stuff. Even if you're just doing, comps or dream, kind of client comps of work that you want to be doing in the future, just to like continue making work. If you have any contacts or friends or family, like sending out emails and, like spreading the word. It's like, it can be organic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Let me dip into some questions a little bit. We have a little question mark bubble at the bottom if you want to ask Hash anything in particular. We've been doing this for about 30 minutes, so we'll go ahead and open it up to a Q&A if anyone wants to ask Hash anything in particular. Leon Kesko, what hardware are you working with at the moment? I'm assuming hardware means software, but maybe it's different. I actually don't really know. What's your setup?
Maybe my like the PC that I'm working on. So I went from Mac to PC quite a few years ago, maybe like 3 or 4, and it was purely because I was doing 3D. You definitely need like quite a beefy machine when you're rendering out loads of frames for like a long animation, and I have a pretty beefy one that I just made last year with like 2 480 Ti's motherboards, graphics cards. So yeah, they're pretty good for rendering. That's like the main like hardware, I guess, to talk about.
Cool. Someone asked what kind of spotlights you use. I don't know if that's a 3D term or just like your physical lighting in your studio.
Don't know, I do use a lot of those Govee lights. But so in terms of my within 3D lighting, I actually keep it like super simple. Everything's like a 3-point lighting system, which is like how you do things in photography. I actually took like photography as when I was in school, so thankfully some of the like lighting techniques translate across to the 3D world, especially now that a lot of 3D software, the lighting is so physical and like real to life. So yeah, I just use like a 3-point lighting system, and then HDRIs help out as well.
Isn't it interesting that like all of the skills that we learned become like more relevant as we kind of develop, like things like photography and web design and type and like all of the weird background we have in art as we developed art, sketching and drawing, and it kind of finds its way into like knowing about lighting and knowing about the sketching process, and it's cool. I have a background in photography too for some reason, but I found it to be really relevant.
Yeah, for sure. It's great.
I'm gonna dip into some questions. Let's see. This is a big one. Nico Negro Studio. What is your relationship or feelings about AI? Do you feel like we are losing the essence of the personal search and the necessary error of the process and the long nights of coffee by having everything so fast and resolved in some way? Long story, what is your feelings about AI? Do you think it's beneficial? Do you think we're, losing it? Another question about AI. This is, it's still on everyone's mind. It's a new weird thing that people are navigating. Is it good? Is it bad? Do we know?
Yeah, I think it's scary for a lot of 3D artists. Maybe why people are asking because of like Sora and all these different things that are coming out in Midjourney. I've spoken to a lot of artists over the last year or so, and going to different design festivals and stuff. And I think most well-seasoned artists are saying the same thing. It's great as like a prompt to help out with the development of your work or like the early R&D maybe, but as a use case for like a one click does it all sort of thing, it obviously doesn't make sense. And and you can kind of see how when AI are like you can tell the difference. Still it's kind of not developed at that point right now. But I'm also seeing a lot of brands, like, although there are brands taking it on and using it, and for instance, like I've worked with the BBC and they use it for a lot of their early development stuff. So big productions and brands are using them. But I kind of feel like we'll see a more analog approach going into the next couple of years. I think because of all of these like fast moving technology and AI, people are going to want to see like the behind the scenes of things. And I feel like people are going to want more physical stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I know we've had a lot of mixed feelings about it and nervous and kind of excited. And I think in general, for a lot of visual artists, digital artists out there, using it as a tool, for comps or for ideation is okay. And more than that, I would be super wary about personally, coming from a fine art background. I think that, actually, I know that this is interesting. A lot of our client contracts that we have request no AI. There's still too much of a open narrative about copyright, and clients don't really want to mess with that and potentially get in legal trouble in the future. So that's a good thing. But also, kind of not leaning on it too much, I think, is important. I think using it as a tool if you can. And I think that people will really want the hand style and the behind the scenes, and seeing that Hash made it and seeing the process and seeing it, your body of work reflecting what you're doing now, and just kind of like everything you've done to lead up to this point to create the work. You know what I mean? I think that there's a lot of admiration and respect in that, and a lot of brands want to get behind that story and behind that story of the artist. And I think that is at least a saving grace that you are making work. So artists, being an artist, I think, is still a super fortunate place to be, regardless of technology, even though it's scary and weird. Let's see. Someone's asking, Leon Kesko is asking about the fact that AI is built into Photoshop now. How are you navigating that? I guess it's with the generative fills and kind of some of the options that Photoshop has for using AI. Is that something you've experienced, or?
Yeah, I have. I've done little things like that. But within motion and 3D, it's cool for like 3D tracking, or like even building character rigs. Anything that can help with that process, like the really tedious stuff, I think that makes sense. So like keying, is like masking out, if I was to mask out my face here amongst this background on video, it's a very hard thing to do. So if AI can help with those sort of things, I think that's totally fine. And I'm seeing a lot more tools being developed for stuff like that, which I'm all for.
And Leon, to answer your question, how can a client say no to AI? This is really more your responsibility when you're the one signing the contract. You're the one that has to say no to AI, basically. So I hope that helps. I know it's like a big question in a lot of creatives' minds, but yes, speaking of kind of like the ways that we work, like, what are you inspired by? What excites you lately? Where do you go for inspiration? What are you excited about when you're making work?
Yeah, I think inspiration-wise is always from other artists. So I love always surfing through Instagram or even TikTok these days. There's a lot of artists on there, surprisingly. And yeah, going to design events and exhibitions and just kind of seeing what everyone's doing. And being a 3D artist, what's cool is like, doesn't matter the medium, I can kind of like learn and take from all sorts of different things and try and like develop it into like 3D perspective and world. So yeah, kind of anything and anyone really.
Cool. Do you want to shout out any of your favorite artists, 3D or otherwise? And if you're not already following Hash, please do so. It's at Hashmukh, which is an abbreviation for his name, Hashmukh. But what are some of your artists that you admire or look up to or just love?
Yeah, Machine East for sure. They're like a incredible duo from Malaysia. I had the pleasure of meeting them as well whenever I go to Malaysia. They're super cool. Ooh, who else off the top of my head?
So casual when Malaysia. That sounds nice.
Yeah, my wife is
Oh,
Malaysian,
that's
so we always head back home, which is cool. Then off the top of my head,
Do you
oh
tend
God,
to
there's so many.
you tend to follow a lot of 3D artists?
Yeah, predominantly a lot of 3D artists, and then some normal graphic designers and all sorts of different creatives as well. But yeah, there's a whole range of people. And my friend Tim Easley is incredible as well. He's an incredible vector artist. So, and his stuff is quite colorful and bubbly as well, and lots of characters.
Cool.
So yeah, there's a few different people.
Cool. We're gonna do a couple more questions before I let you go here because I know it's late for you. And thank you everyone for joining us. If you have a question for Hash, you can put it in the little question mark bubble at the bottom. This is an interesting one, and I'm curious if you have an opinion about this because I do. Axomist is wondering, is there a saturation of 3D artists in comparison to the available work? Personally, I think that 3D art and its popularity and availability has just definitely become more and more, and it's accepted people that can learn the software, use the software. Is there a saturation of 3D artists in comparison to the available work? Sure, maybe. I think that there's more 3D artists now than ever, but there's also more artists now than ever. So I think you could say that when it comes to painting or illustration or 2D work too. I think that there's just a lot of people in the world and a lot of artists more than ever every single day. But I don't know. What do you think about a saturation of 3D artists?
Yeah, I definitely more, especially that the tools are becoming a lot more accessible. So like back in the days, 3D tools were just like there was only a handful and they were very, very expensive. And now you have a lot of web-based applications, so
Yeah.
it's a lot more easier to pick up the skill now. But I guess it's about that refinement and finding that style, and that's how you sort of get your head above the water.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, ways to break ahead or ways to kind of get out of the pool of artists. It's like, defining your style, building your Instagram following, being consistent with your workflow. You do such a good job with it, doing your IG lives, like putting your work out there and being, really disciplined to developing your portfolio. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work, but I think that discipline is really how you kind of rise above it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say to people just starting out or kind of wondering how they get to be where you're at? I know you've put a lot of time and effort and energy into your creative career and kind of getting to be where you're at, but any big secrets you want to share to the fast track to success?
I mean, I don't know about fast track, but probably it's just there isn't one, I guess. Yeah, exactly. I think it's just making like as much as possible and not putting pressure on it. I think that's the key, is to just like create and make it as if it's like super like natural, instead of saying that I'm going to make this incredible project and then everyone's going to see it and it's going to win me all this different work.
Totally.
I think at the moment you start doing that, you start like losing the game a bit there.
I mean, let's humanize this for a little bit. Do you work every day? Do you post every day? Do you make something amazing every day? What's realistic?
No, not for sure. And when I meet people are like, oh, you have all these projects, so you're doing, it looks so cool. I'm like, no, there's so much you don't see. There's so much work that gets canned. I have like files of stuff that it was just R&D, and that's totally fine. And in terms of like posting and putting stuff out, I don't put stuff out as regular as I once did. I used to do a lot of like mini series on Instagram,
Yeah.
so I was putting more content out regularly. But now it's a lot more about just like refining and playing, and a lot of R&D. I do a lot of tutorials. I'm pretty much doing like a tutorial a day, even if it's like a 10-minute thing that I find on YouTube. So yeah, it's kind of a balance, but yeah.
You're really good at that, and I really praise you for putting yourself out there. You know, it takes a lot to kind of put yourself out into the sea of social media, but it's important. We'll maybe do 2 more questions. I'm Hannah Stouffer, H+ Creative. This is Hash, one of our most recent artists that joined us. Aximist again, does commercial work take away from what you actually want to do as an artist? This kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, and I don't think that that should be the case.
Yeah. No, I don't. No, I don't think so. I think it marries up pretty well. And commercial work is important. Like, I learned how to become a good artist and a good communicator and a good colleague amongst like working with other people through doing commercial work.
Totally.
And if I didn't do any of that stuff, like I wouldn't know how to write an email, do an invoice, like all these simple things.
Yeah.
And how to put the ideas in my head onto paper, how to make presentations, all these different things, and how to take criticism and be told like, oh no, this isn't quite right, we want this variation. So I think it marries up pretty well, and I guess it's afterwards how you sort of stem off.
No, I really agree with that. I mean, it's like the professionalism, even though we're artists, even though we're, in here making our own weird work, like the weight of a professional email and communication and ability to stick with deadlines, like it's beneficial just for your entire life. It's not just for work. It's like, you should be able to send someone a nice email or a nice text that, is professionally done. And, I just think that having that level of, respect for yourself and everyone else, whether you're an artist or not, is important. And the client work does help.
Yeah.
Well, amazing. What's on deck for you this weekend? Anything fun, anything exciting out there in London?
Oh, what's going on this weekend? It's sort of winding down here, I guess. London empties out at this time of year because people like leave to go back home.
Yeah.
So it gets a little bit quiet here. But yeah, it's pretty cold and rainy as it goes into the holiday months. But yeah,
I'm not joking.
Just looking forward to the holidays. Yeah.
Totally. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We've been doing this for about 45 minutes, so I'll let you go, Hash. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for everyone's support. Give Hash a follow. I'm Hannah Stouffer over here at H+ Creative. We do these conversations with our new artists every now and then, and feel free to reach out anytime, and obviously follow all of the artists and keep making your own amazing work. Thank you, Hash. That was great.
Thank you.